Okay, so I got these Vector Research stereo receiver from a good friend of mine, and the model number is VRX 8200R. And Vector Research is a company I have not heard of before. Apparently it was a audio or hi-fi equipment company based out of California. And as far as I know, they were active in the 70s until maybe the late 80s, early 90s. This one must be one of their very latest models, and I am not testing it out this week, but I am hoping that I can test it maybe next week. So let's just have a look. So as you can see, it has a display here, which is a green LCD display. Right now we would see a radio station here, which is not tuned in. And then very interestingly, we would have something where we can actually choose between speakers A and B. I'm going to show you this on the backside later. Then we have something which is called MTRX surround. Maybe that stands for matrix surround. I am not sure. And then we can adjust the bass here, the mid, and the treble, and also the balance. Seems pretty standard to me. Then interestingly, it has a filter function. So it says subsonic, high, loudness, and mono. Subsonic, honestly, no clue what it does. Then we have something here which is called FM mute off, antenna B or cable FM. So I'm going to show you this in the back. So you can either feed the radio signal in via an antenna, an aerial, or the cable connection. And then we have something where you can choose between AM and FM. That's pretty obvious. And then we have a scan button here for AM, FM, and one auto scan for FM. We have not attached an antenna yet, so we can't do that. Now, interestingly, we have here buttons from 1 to 10. I am pretty sure that's for the radio, so you can store at least 10 stations, maybe even more. And then we have a memory button here. So let's just see if somebody stored something here. It appears not. Alrighty, then we have the tuning function. It appears, maybe if we put it on auto, yeah, you see now it has an auto scan. Of course, since we have no antenna, the auto scan will not work. Then you can connect one tape, a second tape. Then interestingly, you have audio video in 1, audio video in 2. We have the tuner, of course, CD in, and phono. So I guess in the late 80s, early 90s, there was still state of the art that you had 2 tape ins, audio in, audio video in, tuner, CD, and so on. Now I have to say this thing is pretty hefty in weight. So there's a lot of hardware in there, and now we're gonna turn it around and I'm gonna show you the backside of this Vector Research AM/FM stereo receiver, model number VRX 8200R. Again, I have never heard about this company, Audio Research, before, and I also do not know what this stands for. It reads DOS. I have no clue actually what that means. And let's just turn it around. Okay, so that's the backside of this baby. Now, first thing I wanna say, which I really like, we have a switched power out and an unswitched power out. I guess switched means if we turn on the receiver, it switches on this power outlet. So let's say if a cassette deck would be attached here, it would just have power as long as the receiver would be powered on. This one says unswitched, so I'm pretty sure there will be always power here, right? Then it has a fuse here, and what I told you earlier, we have connections for speaker A and speaker B, so 2 times stereo. And as you've seen before, we can actually choose at the front if we want to hear just speakers A or speakers A and B, or just B. So let's say speaker A could be the speakers in the front and speakers B could be the speakers in the back, or however you choose to do so. Now, this here is pretty interesting. So you see we have, I would say, a bridge connection here, and it looks like this. So we can put this in, and once it's in, it's kind of bridged, which means if we say processor here, and that we could feed in something here and feed out there. So honestly, I have no clue if somebody knows, but we could attach a other processor system here, which then maybe a filter, let's say a filter, which then would maybe surpass or whatever the internal ones. Right now you see every internal stuff is connected to each other, right? Interestingly, here we have something called monitor CRT, so which means if we feed video signal in here, we could actually have a video signal out here. So as far as I know, or I can think of, it's just like really feeding the video signal we put in here out through this one. There is no filter integrated for better picture quality or so. And then we have the input side here, which means phono, so that would be your turntable, record player, obviously CD, tape 1, input, so signal input and output, which makes sense. Let's say you would want to output your cassette tape to another cassette tape, maybe, if that makes sense. We have the same for a second tape. And then, of course, also we have audio visual in and out. So this means as well you can bridge it through. So let's say, let's just make it up, you would have, and that's how we are gonna test it later this week, you would connect a Nintendo 64 here. We could feed the video signal in here, and of course, most important, the audio signal. And then we could pass it through here as well. So next week, we are actually gonna test what that means. I guess this one, the monitor CRT out, means if you just have one monitor, but you have 2 audio signals coming in, you could choose which one you want to see on an external monitor instead of just feeding it through here. That is just a guess. We're gonna find out later next week. It's what I told you before about the radio signal. So you could either feed it in from the cable TV, or I guess that is from an external aerial. Now, this appears to be for an AM antenna, and this is ground. I guess you need that for the antenna. I have to be honest, these 300 ohms connectors here, these two, are kind of coming together with the 75 ohm antenna here. You know what, to be honest, I have no clue how that works. And we have another grounding here, and I guess this grounding would be for the phono, so for the record player. I do also not know what MC or MM stands for, so you could switch between these two. It is below the grounding, and it's in the phono bracket in here, so I guess that has something to do with a phono, and maybe some record players need MC or MM, whatever that stands for. I do not know, but I'm pretty sure the grounding here is for the record player phono, since you see they kind of marked it out here. So I guess that makes sense. And funnily enough, this reads in French here. So I have no clue what it says, but wow, it's interesting. There's a lot of French here, so I guess it was also for the Canadian market, of course. And yeah, so you see here we have some info for the speakers as well. Then we have the model number, again, the VRX 8200R. Power consumption, oh wow, that's hefty, 460 watts. Well, that's pretty much. As I told you, this thing is pretty hefty. It was made in Taiwan and designed in the US of A. And so that's, I'm pretty sure it was also meant for the Canadian market, the French-speaking Canadian market, since we have a lot of French here. And now I'm gonna show you the underside of this as well, which is quite interesting. Okay, so that's kind of the underside of the device. And what's quite interesting, number one, you see the cooler here. It's a huge block of aluminum, and it passes the air quite through from the bottom all the way to the top. Then, interestingly, we're gonna open that up next week. We have a cover here, a removable one, but also one here on the top. And I wonder what we are going to find under this cover and under this cover. I cannot tell you now. And what does it read? Caution, do not remove screws. Refer to notice on back. Well, we read that already. So that's the underside. And I'm going to show you the top where we actually see these air vents going all the way from the button all the way to the top. And kind of makes sense because we just found out that the power supply is a 460 watt power supply. So that's pretty hefty. Could be a good power supply for a mid-range PC. And so I guess this has a lot of oomph. Okay, and now we see the top of the receiver. And you see it has this hefty air vent. And here you see also this aluminum cooling part. So that's a huge passive cooler. The power supply would be, you know what, it's hard to say, but I would assume it's actually here, although the power lead-in comes from this side. But we're gonna find out next week when we are opening it. It is a super sturdy device. All of that is sheet metal, except the front, which is plastic, but this looks like a wonderful build quality to me. As I said, as far as I found out, it was made in or designed in California, and I guess they got a lot of competition then from Asian companies. But I thought I'm going to share this with you because that is a stereo receiver designed and not made, but designed from a US company. Now, as I said before, this company went out of business and was because of the competition from Asia. Same happened to my original home country, Germany. A lot of hi-fi TV manufacturers went out of business because of that. I'm not complaining, it's just a fact. And the same is maybe still happening nowadays. Maybe we get some of that stuff back to Europe and hopefully here in the US of A as well. I actually try to buy as much American or European if possible, but it's almost impossible. Yeah. So again, I have to say I cannot wait to test out this baby a little bit more. It's a, as I said, a wonderful build quality, rock solid, that thing. And I kind of like the front here. It's kind of simple, But the haptics are just wonderful. These buttons are super duper. And I have to say also this dial here, like you really feel like a resistance when you turn it. Also these push buttons, so how should I put that? But that is a wonderful American product. These buttons here, they click. So which means if you turn them here, there is like a notch inside, I guess, which brings you from one to the other setting. That's really nicely done. Same with the bass. The only one where it's not doing this, it's with the balance. I guess that is on purpose. And no, I guess we have switched it to AM. Let's see, how can we actually switch it back to FM? Okay, so I can't wait to attach an antenna here as well. You see, it would also read the strength of the signal. It would show us if we have a stereo signal. And then, of course, we also have a meter here, which would give us, I'm not sure if that's a decibel or whatever we would have here. So, yeah, next week there is a longer review on that. I wonder what that means. AV here looks cool, that logo, but I wonder what has that to do with Vector Research. Maybe AV was audio visual, because they have it here as well. You see high quality AV components. So yeah, that's audio visual. Originally, it came apparently with a remote control, because we have a remote sensor here. I do not have the remote control. Maybe I find some settings online, because I have a programmable remote control. Maybe we can program it or not. So next week, I'll try to have a full test of this device, and we gonna open it. But for now, thanks for watching, and that's a pretty good classic American audio stereo product.